First contact's price. Dr. Samira Patel should have been celebrating. The quantum archaeology team she led had just made the discovery of the century buried deep within Mars' Valles Marineris. Instead, she stood in the excavation chamber, her throat tight as she studied the perfectly preserved alien beacon that had just shattered humanity's understanding of its place in the cosmos. The device was beautiful in its complexity, a crystalline structure roughly the size of a car, covered in spiral patterns that seemed to shift and flow when viewed from different angles. But it wasn't the beacon's appearance that had Samira's hands trembling as she rechecked the translations. It was its message. "Run the analysis again," she ordered, her voice echoing in the pressurized chamber. Her team of international researchers exchanged worried glances but complied. They all knew it wouldn't change the result. The beacon was a warning, left by a long-vanished species called the predecessors. They had seeded countless worlds with the potential for life, Earth among them. But their message wasn't the welcome humanity had dreamed of finding. It was a countdown. "Transmission confirmed, Doctor," called out Dr. Chen Wei, her quantum linguistics specialist. "The beacon's primary message remains consistent. To the children of Earth who find this message, you have reached the threshold. The assembly gathers. You will be judged." Samira closed her eyes, remembering all the dreams humanity had harbored about first contact. None had imagined this, discovering that Earth was part of a vast experiment, and that reaching Mars had triggered some kind of evaluation protocol. The ground beneath them trembled slightly. At first, Samira thought it was another Martian quake, but the vibration was too regular, too mechanical. The beacon's spiral patterns began to pulse with an inner light. "Energy spike," shouted Dr. James Morrison, the team's physicist. "It's not just a message device, it's a transmitter." Before anyone could react, a beam of coherent light shot from the beacon's apex, passing harmlessly through the excavation chamber ceiling. Samira's tablet exploded with data as their instruments tracked the signal's path into deep space. "It's sending our coordinates," James reported grimly. "Along with everything. Our entire civilization's electromagnetic footprint, compressed and encoded. Television broadcasts, internet traffic, military communications, they're getting our whole history in a burst transmission." Samira felt the weight of responsibility settle onto her shoulders. Whatever came next would reshape human civilization forever. "Get me a direct line to the Security Council. They need to know we're about to have visitors." The next 72 hours transformed Earth. As governments worldwide scrambled to prepare for potential first contact, more beacons activated across the solar system. They were found buried on Venus, hidden in Jupiter's Trojans, and orbiting in the Kuiper Belt. A network of ancient surveillance devices that had watched humanity's every step into space. In her makeshift command center within the Martian base, Samira coordinated with Earth's hastily assembled First Contact Committee. The beacon's data stream had included basic information about humanity's judges, the Assembly, a coalition of advanced civilizations that had appointed themselves guardians of galactic stability. "They're not coming to welcome us," Samira explained to the committee. "The predecessor's message is clear. We're being evaluated as a potential threat. Our development rate is apparently unprecedented among surveilled species. We've gone from first powered flight to Mars colonies in just over a century. That's set off some serious alarms." Admiral Helena Santos, the committee's military representative, leaned forward in her holographic projection. "Threat assessment. Unknown," Samira admitted, "but the beacon's technical specifications alone indicate we're dealing with civilizations centuries ahead of us technologically. Their ships can manipulate gravity as easily as we manipulate electricity. Then we can't fight them," someone muttered. "Maybe we don't have to," interjected Dr. Wei. "The beacon's historical records suggest the Assembly operates on strict protocols. This is a trial, not an invasion. We have the right to defend ourselves, intellectually, if not militarily." Samira nodded. "They'll send representatives to evaluate us in person. We need to be ready to prove humanity deserves its place among the stars." The discussion was interrupted by a priority alert from Earth's new deep space monitoring network. Multiple objects had just appeared beyond Neptune's orbit, decelerating from faster-than-light travel. The Assembly's judges had arrived. What followed was perhaps the most surreal first contact in the history of any species. The Assembly ships, massive structures that resembled geometric abstract art more than traditional spacecraft, took up position around Earth's moon. Their first transmission was brief and precise. Humanity had 14 Earth days to prepare its defense before the trial would begin. But it was their second transmission that truly revealed the stakes. The Assembly had accessed Earth's information networks, studying human culture, history, and science. They were not impressed. To them, humanity's rapid rise from planetary civilization to spacefaring species represented an unacceptable anomaly. Our potential for both creation and destruction had been deemed too unpredictable to allow unfettered expansion into the galaxy. If humanity failed the trial, we would be contained, our technology level forcibly reduced, our memories of the stars erased, our species relegated to permanent planetary quarantine. Samira spent those 14 days working with experts from every field, preparing humanity's defense. The Assembly's technology was magnificent, but she began to notice something about their behavior. They were rigid, predictable, bound by protocols that hadn't changed in millennia. Perhaps that was why humanity's chaotic, rapid development disturbed them so deeply. The night before the trial was to begin, Samira stood in her Mars base observatory, watching Earth's blue sphere hanging in the black sky. Tomorrow, she would serve as humanity's principal defender before the Assembly's judges. The fate of human civilization would depend not on military might or technological advancement, but on her ability to prove that humanity's greatest strength, its unpredictability, was an asset to the galaxy, not a threat. As she prepared her arguments, a thought struck her. The Assembly had accessed all of human knowledge, but they had focused on our achievements, our technologies, our conflicts. Had they truly understood what drove humanity forward? Did they comprehend the power of human curiosity, creativity, and determination? Samira smiled. Perhaps humanity's best defense would be to show the Assembly something they had never seen before, a species that viewed the unknown not as a threat to be contained, but as an invitation to explore, to learn, to grow. Tomorrow, she would make them understand that humanity's rapid rise wasn't a danger to galactic stability. It was proof that the universe still held the capacity to surprise, to evolve, to transcend the boundaries of the possible. The trial would begin at dawn, Earth time. Humanity's future hung in the balance. But as Samira finalized her presentation, she felt a surge of confidence. The Assembly thought they were coming to judge humanity. Instead, they were about to learn why humans had accomplished in decades what took other species centuries. They were about to learn the true price of first contact, the realization that their carefully ordered galaxy would never be the same once humanity took its place among the stars. The Trial of Terra, the Assembly's chosen venue for humanity's trial, defied conventional physics. Within the largest of their ships, they had created a space that seemed to exist somewhere between normal dimensions, a vast chamber where the concepts of up and down held little meaning, and distant objects appeared simultaneously far away and close enough to touch. Dr. Samira Patel stood on what felt like solid ground, though nothing visible supported her. Around her, arranged in a three-dimensional spiral that stretched into impossible distances, sat the Assembly's judges. Each species had sent 3 representatives, their forms as diverse as the galaxy itself. Some were energy constructs contained within crystalline matrices. Others were biological entities that made human anatomy seem simple by comparison, and still others defied categorization entirely. The primary judge, a being composed of interconnected geometric shapes that shifted and reformed as it spoke, addressed the gathering. Its words were automatically translated by the chamber's advanced systems, though the concepts sometimes stretched the boundaries of human language. We convene this evaluation of species 7249 Delta, self-designated humanity, the primary judge announced. Our analysis indicates an unprecedented development velocity, from primitive combustion engines to quantum computing in less than 2 centuries, from first atmospheric flight to interplanetary colonization in 12 decades, from splitting the atom to manipulating quantum states in less than 100 years. The judge's geometric forms pulsed with what might have been concern. Such acceleration suggests inherent instability. Previous cases of rapid technological development have resulted in species self-extinction or catastrophic damage to their stellar regions. Samira stepped forward. She wore a simple suit, deliberately choosing not to match the assembly's ethereal aesthetics. Distinguished judges, humanity acknowledges its rapid progress. We submit that this very acceleration demonstrates our fitness for galactic citizenship. A ripple of what might have been skepticism passed through the gathered judges. A crystalline entity spoke next, its voice chiming like bells. Your species developed weapons of mass destruction before achieving reliable spaceflight. You nearly destroyed your biosphere multiple times. Your information networks are chaotic, vulnerable to manipulation. How do you defend such reckless advancement? Samira had anticipated this line of questioning. I would like to present evidence that what you see as reckless advancement is actually humanity's greatest strength, our ability to learn from our mistakes and adapt rapidly. She gestured, and the chamber's systems responded, projecting a series of images from Earth's history. Yes, we developed nuclear weapons, but we also learned to harness nuclear power for peaceful purposes. We nearly destroyed our atmosphere, but then developed carbon capture technology and rebuilt our energy infrastructure. Our early information networks were vulnerable, so we developed quantum encryption and neural security systems. An entity composed of swirling gases interrupted. This pattern matches catastrophic development curves. Initial problems solved by creating more advanced technology, which creates new problems requiring even more advanced solutions. A spiral that typically ends in disaster. Or, Samira countered, it demonstrates our species' unique ability to face challenges and overcome them. Consider this. Every species represented here developed along predictable paths. Controlled, measured, safe. She paused, letting her words sink in. And how has that served the galaxy? How many truly revolutionary discoveries has the Assembly seen in the past millennium? The chamber grew very still. Samira pressed her advantage. You fear our chaos, our unpredictability. But these very traits have driven us to solve problems in ways your simulations never predicted. We don't follow development curves because we don't accept limitations as absolute. She waved her hand, and new images appeared. Earth's rapid response to global pandemics, the transformation of deserts into green spaces, the cleaning of the oceans, the development of sustainable fusion power. Each crisis pushed us to innovate, to think differently, to exceed what we thought possible. The primary judge's geometric forms spun rapidly. You make our point for us. Unpredictable development is dangerous development. The galaxy requires stability. Does it? Samira challenged. Or does it require growth? Evolution. Change. She projected a final series of images. The Mars colonies, the asteroid mining operations, the quantum communications network humanity had built. In less than a century, we've solved problems your civilization spent millennia struggling with. Not because we're smarter, but because we're willing to try approaches your protocols would never permit. A new voice spoke, one of the energy beings. You propose that humanity's chaotic development is beneficial to galactic civilization. I propose that it's essential, Samira replied. Your own records show that technological development across the galaxy has plateaued. You've achieved incredible advances, yes, but when was the last time any assembly species created something truly new? Something that changed your fundamental understanding of the universe? The chamber erupted in discussion, thousands of alien voices debating in hundreds of languages. The primary judge called for order, its geometric forms briefly fragmenting before reforming. You walk a dangerous path. Defender, you suggest the Assembly's methods are flawed. I suggest they're incomplete. Some error-corrected. Humanity offers something the galaxy desperately needs, a different perspective. A willingness to take calculated risks, to challenge assumptions, to find solutions where others see only problems. She gestured to her own presence in the chamber. Look at me. A week ago, I had never encountered advanced alien life. Now I stand in a room that defies physics as we understand it, debating humanity's future with beings that challenge our very concept of existence. Has any other species adapted so quickly to such a profound paradigm shift? The crystalline entity chimed thoughtfully. Your argument has merit, but also proves our concerns. Such rapid adaptation could be dangerous if misapplied. All progress carries risk, Samira acknowledged. But consider this. Humanity has already proven we can contribute to galactic civilization. Our quantum archaeology techniques discovered your beacons when your own sensors had lost track of them. Our primitive chemical rockets reached Mars while staying under your detection threshold. Our chaotic information networks process data in ways your predictive models never imagined. She took a deep breath. We don't ask for unrestricted access to advanced technology. We don't even ask for protection or guidance. All we ask is the chance to prove that humanity's unique approach to problem-solving can benefit everyone, the assembly included. The primary judge was silent for a long moment, its geometric forms cycling through complex patterns. Finally, it spoke. Your defense is unprecedented. Like your species, its forms shifted again. We will deliberate. As the judges withdrew into their private conference dimension, Samira remained standing in the chamber. She had done what she could. Now humanity's fate rested in the hands of beings who found our very nature disturbing. But she smiled slightly, remembering something her grandmother used to say. The things that challenge us most are often the things we need most. Perhaps the assembly was about to learn that lesson for themselves. Innovation under fire. The attack came while the assembly was still deliberating. Later, investigations would reveal that a faction of hardliners, calling themselves the Preservers, had decided humanity was too dangerous to leave to chance. Their strike force emerged from faster-than-light travel inside the orbit of Mars, bypassing Earth's early warning systems. Dr. Samira Patel watched in horror from the assembly chamber as the tactical display showed dozens of alien warships advancing toward Earth. The primary judge's geometric form scattered in what appeared to be genuine shock. This is unauthorized, the judge declared. The trial protocols are absolute. With respect, Samira interrupted, her voice sharp. Protocols won't stop those ships. While the assembly debates, my people are under attack. I demand emergency response rights under Section 7 of the trial codes. The crystalline entity chimed in agreement. Granted. Defender, your species may take any actions necessary for survival. But be warned, your response will be considered part of your evaluation. Samira was already activating her quantum comm link to Earth Defense Command. Admiral Santos, are you seeing this? We are. Helena's voice came through clearly. The Preservers are using some kind of gravity manipulation technology. Our conventional weapons can't get a lock on their ships. The space around them is too distorted. What's our status? Better than they think. There was a hint of satisfaction in the Admiral's voice. Remember all those weather satellites we launched last year? Turns out they're perfect for what we need. Samira allowed herself a small smile. Trust humanity to have a contingency plan. Execute at will, Admiral. The Assembly has granted defensive rights. What followed would be studied by military tacticians, both human and alien, for centuries to come. The Preservers advanced in perfect formation, their gravity drives creating a web of distorted space that would render conventional weapons useless. They expected Earth to either surrender immediately or launch a futile defense using missiles and energy weapons. They weren't prepared for what actually happened. Thousands of seemingly innocuous weather satellites suddenly activated. Instead of targeting the Preserver ships directly, they released clouds of what appeared to be metallic dust. The preserver's gravity distortion fields pulled in the particles, assuming they were merely debris. That was their first mistake. Each microscopic particle was actually a crystalline computer running on incredibly simple quantum principles. As they were drawn into the gravity fields, they began to resonate at specific frequencies, creating interference patterns in the distorted space. Fascinating, the crystalline entity observed. Your species weaponized basic quantum mechanics. The simpler the technology, the harder it is to detect or defend against. The preserver's gravity drives began to falter as the resonance built up. Their perfect formation started to break apart. But that was just the first phase of Earth's defense. Hidden among the asteroid mining operations around Mars, humanity's real weapons platforms revealed themselves. They didn't fire advanced energy beams or antimatter torpedoes. Instead, they launched swarms of small automated drones that had been disguised as mining equipment. These drones were built using technology that was centuries behind the preservers: simple chemical rockets, basic AI, and rudimentary shields. But they carried payloads of specially engineered bacteria, developed from extremophile organisms found in Earth's deepest ocean trenches. As the drones impacted the hulls of the preserver ships, they released these bacteria, organisms that could survive in space and that fed on the exact type of exotic materials used in advanced alien technology. Within minutes, the bacteria began breaking down the outer layers of the preserver vessels, converting their super-advanced hull material into simple compounds. Biological warfare. The gaseous entity swirled in what might have been disapproval. Biological recycling. Samira corrected. The bacteria are harmless to organic life and only consume specific artificial materials. They're also programmed to die after a single reproductive cycle. We learned from our mistakes with invasive species on Earth. The preservers found themselves fighting an enemy they couldn't easily target, using weapons that seemed to actively work against them. Their gravity drives were compromised, their hulls were deteriorating, and their advanced targeting systems were confused by the quantum interference from the crystalline dust. But humanity wasn't finished. From Earth's surface, enormous electromagnetic pulse generators, disguised as civilian power installations, activated. The pulses were specifically tuned to the resonance frequencies of the crystalline dust now surrounding the preserver ships. Each particle became a tiny EMP broadcaster, creating a web of electromagnetic chaos that shut down the aliens' more sensitive systems. Primitive but effective, the primary judge observed, its geometric forms arranging into what might have been an expression of approval. You turned your technological limitations into an advantage. Samira nodded. The preservers assumed that because we couldn't match their technology level, we couldn't harm them. They forgot that sometimes the simplest solutions are the most effective. The battle lasted less than an hour. Unable to maintain their gravity drives, their hulls compromised, and their systems chaotic, the preserver ships were forced to retreat. They left behind a debris field of discarded advanced technology that was already being broken down into base elements by humanity's engineered bacteria. But it was what happened next that truly demonstrated humanity's unique approach. Instead of celebrating their victory, Earth's scientists were already analyzing the debris, studying the remains of preserver technology. Within hours, they had begun incorporating their findings into new defensive systems. "You're adapting their technology already," the crystalline entity chimed in surprise. "Without assembly guidance. We're not trying to replicate their advanced systems," Samira explained. "We're learning from their mistakes. Their gravity drives were perfect, and that was their weakness. They had no protocols for dealing with imperfect resonance. Their hulls were designed to be impenetrable, so they had no defense against something that could slowly break them down. They were too advanced to consider primitive solutions." The primary judge's geometric forms arranged themselves into a new configuration, one that Samira's translation systems identified as indicating deep thought. "You turned the preserver's technological superiority against them, using methods so simple they weren't prepared to defend against them. And now you study their failure not to copy their advancement, but to understand their limitations. Exactly, Samara replied. Humanity's strength isn't in our technology level. It's in our ability to find unexpected solutions, to learn from every experience, and to never assume that advanced automatically means better. As the assembly watched, Earth's defense forces were already implementing improvements based on the battle's lessons. The bacterial strains were being refined, the quantum dust made more efficient, the EMP frequencies better tuned. Humanity hadn't just survived an attack by a vastly superior force. They had turned it into a learning experience. The gaseous entity swirled thoughtfully. Perhaps we were asking the wrong questions in this trial. We focused on whether humanity's development pace was too fast. We should have been asking what humanity could teach us about development itself. Samira stood straight, her expression confident. That, honored judges, is exactly the point I've been trying to make. The counterstrike. The Assembly's deliberation chamber had transformed into an impromptu war room. Holographic displays showed the Preserver fleet regrouping at the edge of the solar system, their numbers growing as more hardliner factions joined their cause. Earth's unexpected defense had only strengthened their conviction that humanity was too unpredictable to be allowed into galactic society. Dr. Samira Patel stood with Admiral Helena Santos, studying the tactical displays. The assembly judges watched with varying degrees of interest as the two humans discussed strategy. They'll be better prepared this time, Helena noted. Our previous tactics won't work twice. They don't need to, Samira replied. While they're adapting to counter our last strategy, we're already 3 steps ahead with something new. The primary judges' geometric forms arranged themselves into what the humans had learned was an expression of curiosity. You intend to launch a counterattack against forces with significantly superior technology. Superior is a relative term, Helena said, activating a new holographic display. In the past week, we've learned more about advanced technology by studying its vulnerabilities than we would have in decades of peaceful development. But more importantly, we've confirmed our core military theory. The crystalline entity chimed inquisitively. Which is, that technology gaps can be bridged by changing the nature of the battlefield itself, Samira explained. She gestured, and the display showed a new type of ship emerging from Earth's shipyards, vessels that looked deceptively primitive. The gaseous entity swirled in what might have been amusement. You build warships with physical materials. In an age of energy constructs and quantum manifolds, we build warships that look like they're made of physical materials, Helena corrected. Operation Trojan Horse is already underway. Over the next 24 hours, the assembly watched with growing fascination as humanity demonstrated why their unpredictability made them so dangerous and so valuable to galactic civilization. The counterattack began with what appeared to be a straightforward assault. Earth's new ships, seemingly built from salvaged preserver technology combined with human engineering, approached the enemy fleet in a conventional attack formation. The preservers, having analyzed the previous battle, were ready for quantum dust, engineered bacteria, and electromagnetic pulses. They weren't ready for ships that violated the basic principles of their understanding of physics. As the preserver fleet engaged their advanced targeting systems, humanity's ships did something impossible. They desynchronized from normal space-time. Each vessel existed in multiple quantum states simultaneously, making them effectively impossible to target. But unlike the preserver's advanced quantum technology, which required enormous energy expenditure to maintain such states, the human ships used a bizarrely simple method. Are those probability engines? The crystalline entity chimed in disbelief. Made from modified gambling machines. Slot machines, specifically, Samira confirmed. We discovered that the random number generators in primitive electronic gambling devices, when scaled up and linked together, create quantum uncertainty fields far more efficiently than advanced probability computers. The preserver's targeting systems are too perfect. They can't lock onto something that exists in a superposition of states maintained by deliberately imperfect technology. The human fleet split into 3 dimensions simultaneously, existing in multiple probability states that confused and overwhelmed the preserver's sensors. But this was just the beginning. The next phase of the attack involved what appeared to be a massive electromagnetic pulse. The preservers, having adjusted their shields after the previous battle, easily blocked it. Then they realized the pulse wasn't a weapon, it was a carrier wave. Through this wave, humanity transmitted something that had never been weaponized before: human music. Music? The gaseous entity swirled in confusion. How is this a weapon? It's not the music itself, Helena explained. It's the mathematical patterns within it. We discovered that certain musical compositions, specifically those following the Fibonacci sequence and incorporating specific harmonic progressions, create resonance patterns that interact with advanced technology in fascinating ways. The preserver ships began to experience strange effects. Their quantum fields, usually maintained in perfect harmony, began to shift and pulse in time with the musical mathematics being broadcast. Their gravity drives, which required precise spatial coordination, started to generate conflicting fields. You're using art as a weapon. The primary judge's geometric forms spun in what might have been amazement. We're using art as a key to unlock the universe's underlying patterns, Samira corrected. Your civilizations separated science and art millennia ago. Humanity never did. To us, they're different expressions of the same creative force. The battle unfolded like a symphony, with each phase building upon the last. The human ships, existing in quantum superposition, broadcast their musical mathematics while deploying their final innovation, what they called narrative bombs. These devices didn't explode. Instead, they transmitted manufactured stories, myths, and legends directly into the preserver's communication networks. These narratives, crafted using advanced psychological principles and carrying embedded quantum codes, began to infect the preserver's group consciousness. Social engineering through storytelling, the crystalline entity's chimes became more complex. Combined with quantum encryption, stories shaped human civilization, Samira explained. They're how we process new ideas, how we adapt to change, how we imagine possibilities. We discovered that sufficiently advanced AI systems are similarly vulnerable to narrative restructuring. The preserver's shared consciousness is experiencing something they've never encountered before: doubt expressed through story. The effect was devastating. The preserver fleet, faced with ships they couldn't properly target, resonance patterns that disrupted their technology, and narrative attacks that challenged their fundamental beliefs, began to fall into disarray. This isn't just a military victory, the primary judge observed. You're forcing them to evolve. Exactly, Helena confirmed. Every solution we've deployed doesn't just defeat the enemy, it makes them question their assumptions. The quantum uncertainty of our ships challenges their belief in technological perfection. The musical mathematics shows them that patterns exist beyond their understanding. The narrative bombs introduce concepts their shared consciousness never considered. The preservers retreated, but they weren't the same force that had attacked Earth. Their perfect consensus had been shattered by human stories. Their technological superiority had been undermined by gambling machines and music. Their advanced weapons had been rendered useless by ships that turned quantum uncertainty into an art form. Samira turned to the assembly judges. This is what humanity offers the galaxy. Not just new technologies or different perspectives, but the ability to see beyond the boundaries of what's assumed to be possible. We don't just solve problems, we change the context that makes them problems in the first place. The primary judge's geometric forms arranged themselves into a new configuration, one that the translation systems identified as expressing profound realization. You've demonstrated something remarkable. Your species doesn't just adapt to the universe. You make the universe adapt to you. As the assembly watched Earth's fleet return home, they began to understand that they weren't just witnessing the end of a battle. They were seeing the beginning of a new era in galactic civilization, one where humanity's chaos might just be exactly what the ordered universe needed. A new dawn. 3 months after the Preserver conflict, the Assembly reconvened in their dimensional chamber to deliver their final judgment on humanity. But this time, something was different. The chamber itself had been modified, incorporating elements of human design that made the impossible space feel less alien, more inclusive. It was a small change that represented something much larger. The Assembly itself was evolving. Dr. Samira Patel stood before the gathered judges, but no longer alone. Admiral Helena Santos stood with her, along with representatives from Earth's scientific, artistic, and cultural communities. The primary judge's geometric forms arranged themselves into what humans now recognize as a formal announcement configuration. We have reached our decision regarding species 7249 Delta, humanity, the judge began. It is not the decision we expected to make when this trial began. The crystalline entity chimed in agreement. How could it be? The very criteria by which we judge species have been transformed by human actions. The gaseous entity swirled thoughtfully. We sought to evaluate humanity's fitness for galactic civilization. Instead, humanity has evaluated us, exposed our stagnation, and shown us possibilities we have forgotten existed. The primary judge continued, its forms shifting into increasingly complex patterns. The Preserver's attack, while unauthorized, provided an unprecedented test of human capabilities. Your response demonstrated not just technological innovation, but a fundamental reimagining of what technology itself can be. You turned simple gambling machines into quantum probability engines, the crystalline entity chimed. You weaponized music and storytelling. You made art into a force that could challenge advanced AI systems. More importantly, the gaseous entity added, you showed us that true advancement isn't measured by technological achievement alone. It's measured by the ability to see beyond established limitations, to find connections between seemingly unrelated concepts, to turn obstacles into opportunities. Samira stepped forward. Then you understand what I've been trying to explain since the beginning. Humanity's rapid development isn't a threat to galactic stability. It's an opportunity for galactic growth. The primary judge's forms arranged into a new configuration, one that had never been seen before in the Assembly's history. We do more than understand. We are transformed by this understanding. The Assembly has existed for millennia as guardians of galactic stability. We now recognize that stability without growth leads to stagnation. Your victory over the Preservers proved this, the crystalline entity added. They represented our fear of change, our resistance to new ideas. Their defeat wasn't just military, it was philosophical. They were overcome not by superior technology, but by superior imagination. A new holographic display appeared in the chamber, showing changes already spreading through galactic civilization. Assembly species were beginning to experiment with hybrid technologies, combining their advanced systems with simpler, more flexible approaches inspired by humanity. The rigid protocols that had governed development for millennia were being reevaluated, updated to encourage innovation while maintaining safety. Therefore, the primary judge announced, we reached this unprecedented conclusion. Humanity is granted not just acceptance into galactic civilization, but a special status as catalysts of innovation. The chamber erupted in a chorus of reactions, chimes, swirls, geometric reconfigurations, and dozens of other alien expressions of surprise and approval. The primary judge waited for quiet before continuing. This status grants Earth certain privileges and responsibilities. You will have access to Assembly technology databases, but we suspect you'll use them differently than expected. Rather than simply adopting advanced technology, you'll likely find ways to combine it with your own unique approaches, creating new possibilities we haven't imagined. We also request, the crystalline entity added, that humanity establish what you call think tanks, centers of innovation where human creativity can interact with Assembly knowledge. We believe this combination will benefit all species. Admiral Santos stepped forward. And what of the Preservers? Those who still resist change. The gaseous entity swirled confidently. They are already changing, whether they wish to or not. Your narrative bombs didn't just defeat them. They infected them with human creativity. Their shared consciousness now contains stories they can't forget, ideas that challenge their assumptions. They will either adapt or become irrelevant. Samira smiled. That's a very human perspective. Precisely, the primary judge agreed. You've begun to influence us in ways we didn't expect. Our perfect consensus is now regularly challenged by alternative viewpoints. Our technology, once standardized across all species, is becoming more diverse, more adaptable. Even this chamber, designed to demonstrate our mastery of space-time, has been modified to be more accessible to different perspectives. The display shifted, showing Earth as seen from space. But now, alongside the traditional satellites and space stations, new structures were taking shape, hybrid constructions that combined assembly technology with human innovation. They weren't just space stations or research facilities. They were bridges between two approaches to understanding the universe. This is not the end of your trial, the primary judge concluded. In many ways, it's the beginning of ours. Humanity has shown us that true advancement comes not from perfecting what we know, but from constantly questioning, exploring, and reimagining what's possible. As the assembly session concluded, Samira looked out at the gathered representatives of galactic civilization. She saw beings of energy, crystal, gas, and forms beyond human comprehension. But she also saw something new in them, a spark of chaos, a willingness to question, a desire to explore new possibilities, ready to change the galaxy. Admiral Santos asked quietly. Samira nodded, one impossible solution at a time. The assembly chamber shimmered around them, its perfect geometry now interwoven with patterns of human design, a physical representation of the change already spreading through the galaxy. Humanity hadn't just earned its place among the stars. It had shown the stars themselves that there were still new ways to shine.